Here, the Oakland Raiders expected to trade Raiders defensive end Khalil Mack to the Chicago Bears. Of course, with that, let's bring in NFL media insider Ian Rappaport now for the latest details on this blockbuster trade. Ian, it's good to see you again. Less than 24 hours ago, we were talking about Aaron Donald's blockbuster trade. Now we are talking about Khalil Mack. What is the latest?
Well, this is something that has been going on through the wee hours of last night, really round-the-clock discussions between the Oakland Raiders, the Chicago Bears, and Joel Siegel, Khalil Mack's agent, because from what I understand, the Chicago Bears do have a negotiating window with Joel Siegel. They have permission to negotiate with him a new deal for Khalil Mack. That is expected to come along with this trade. Here is what we know right now. The Chicago Bears are, in fact, expected to trade for star pass rusher Khalil Mack. This is something late last night that was in place. That is why Siegel has been having the negotiations with the Chicago Bears, because this is not something that is going to come without Mack getting the long-term, huge, massive contract that he has long sought, something the Bears were not willing to give. As far as what the compensation could be, this was described to me as something that would cost 2 first-round picks and a player. Now, there were several other teams that were, in fact, interested. We've talked about the New York Jets. The Buffalo Bills were a team. The Cleveland Browns were a team. The Green Bay Packers were a team. All those inquired. San Francisco 49ers. A lot of teams inquired. Only one team was willing to go where the Raiders needed them to go, which was something that would give John Gruden the opportunity to say, we have to make this deal. Yes, I know he's one of the best players in the NFL. We have to make this deal. That is where Chicago is at right now. That is where the Raiders are at. And where Khalil Mack is, well, he is soon going to be in Chicago.
Now in the NFC North, and of course they're opening up their game against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You got to wonder if Aaron Rodgers is listening right now. Let me ask you this, though. How does this impact the Bears on the defensive side of the ball? Obviously, you know Vic Fangio's got to be a happy man today. Alongside that defensive line with Leonard Floyd, how does this impact the Bears' defense?
Well, the Chicago Bears are kind of a trendy team right now. Young, have a good young quarterback that some people think is going to be a big-time star, franchise-type guy. They added a bunch of receivers. They got a deep running back group. They got a pretty good secondary. They have a star, they believe, in the middle of their defense with Roquan Smith. You mentioned Leonard Floyd, one of the young, up-and-coming pass rushers in the NFL. They just really didn't have a big-time megastar. Not that you need one. They just didn't have one. Well, guess what? Now they do. Now the Bears are going to have Khalil Mack on one side of their defense. And, you know, with all the discussion about, same thing with Aaron Donald, all the discussion about Donald and all the discussion about Mack, there's one thing that you could never take away. These guys are great. Khalil Mack is a great football player. And so what the Chicago Bears did for an incredibly hefty price was add someone who most people believe is a top 5 or top 10 football player in the NFL. Cost a lot of money. Yes, they're going to pay for it in draft picks and in compensation and in just money. But they added a huge football player, someone to really destroy opposing quarterbacks this season.
The Bears now add their defensive star, but now the Raiders don't seem, at least some questions there on the defensive side of the ball. How did we come to this place? Because there was a lot of rumors swirling that John Gruden, and you mentioned it, really wasn't in talks with Khalil Mack, trying to make this team his own. How did this come to this place where there's really very little communication?
Well, there was a time a couple weeks ago that the Raiders thought that Khalil Mack was coming in. They thought he would show up. A lot of people thought he would show up kind of after the first preseason game. Once Mack decided, you know what, this team does not believe in me, I just can't do it. Once it became clear that he was going to miss games, and that was, in fact, what was going to happen, then it was obvious that the Raiders needed to move on. They just couldn't give him away. It's not that they wanted to get rid of Khalil Mack. They were just, all of a sudden, they went from we're not trading him to, yeah, maybe we're going to listen. And then once they started listening, the offers came rolling in. They got the offers that they needed, which was, look, this is a Raiders team. I know they were really good 2 years ago. There are some key people there that think they need to retool a little bit, need to rebuild a little bit. They're now going to get 2 first-round picks to do it, plus the extra, let's say, $23 million a year to spend that they're not going to pay Khalil Mack. They believe they need to spend it on a lot of players. and that's exactly what they're going to do now.
Yeah, Steve Weish saying that Khalil Mack expecting around $65 million guaranteed. Let's bring in our Tom Pelissero.
It's going to be more. It's going to be more than Aaron Donald. I'll tell you that.
Wow, huge. Let's bring in our Tom Pelissero. Tom, what do you know about how we got to this point? What led up to this?
Really, everything escalated, Aaron, in the past 72 hours or so. I spoke to an NFL executive on Tuesday who said, listen, everybody in the league right now is calling the Raiders about Khalil Mack. They've gotten a ton of calls. They've gotten offers. And that was corroborated by some other teams that said there are offers out there for the Raiders of a first and a third round pick that they had gotten offered by multiple teams. They've been offered a star player for another team. And they had really not acted on any of it. They had not counter-offered. They had not shown that that was enough to get them interested in actually making this deal. Well, that gave people within the league the impression it's going to cost at least 2 first-round picks to get Khalil Mack. And what I'm told is by last night, the Raiders were telling people, we have 2 first-round picks on the table and more for Khalil Mack. We'll see exactly what that ends up being that the Bears are planning to send to Oakland. But the Raiders had a price. It was a very high price. People in the league always like to say that everybody's got a price. Well, even Khalil Mack apparently has a price for the Oakland Raiders. It's not just the 2 first-round picks and whatever else the Raiders are going to get. But don't forget now, for the Bears, the price includes that contract that Ian mentioned, likely to reach $23 million a year. That is a huge commitment to a player who is at an impact position at pass rusher. Really, there's not a lot of teams that do that outside of the quarterback.